I'd like to first say thanks for coming, and it's an honor and a privilege to be here. Like Jake, I'm a student of Mr. Hall, and to walk through the door and be able to follow up not only Roy, but also Jake and his passion and enthusiasm for what we do locally is truly an honor. And as I walked through the door, this is not uncommon when I am around Roy. I walked through the door and immediately started looking for something to write on, taking notes. I didn't come with any notes, but I've got a few now, Roy, so thank you for that. That's great. Again, I'm Matt Rao. I'm the Fire Management Officer for the Sandia Ranger District. And when Pam called me and asked if I would come speak about, she had a vision about this section and about talking about clearing the skies for the Albuquerque Balloon Fiesta, I thought, wow, that's fantastic. That's a big deal for us. That's something that we really think about every year. It's a big deal. And so as I thought about that, I started formulating my thoughts, and I realized that, gosh, that really is such a small component of the things that we deal with around here in the greater Albuquerque metro and the areas surrounding what is our little chunk of land, which is right behind us on the hill here. So the Albuquerque Balloon Fiesta, a once-a-year event. The Festival of Cranes, another once-a-year event. We have several of these things that are big deals that we manage around. And the first thing that came to mind, Jeff, hi Jeff, I was hoping you'd be here, was a concept that we've been dealing with and wrapping our heads around a little bit. And I heard it from Roy and from Jake and from the comments in the audience about one of the key things is teamwork. Teamwork and transparency. And that goes even with our regulatory bodies, Claudia and everybody else that assists us in making good decisions. And for us, I think the last place that we want to be is in a spot to have somebody tell us what we can and can't do. That's really a mindset that we've wrapped our heads around very, very lately, actually. But to have them involved as partners and these event organizers, again, the Balloon Fiesta, Festival of Cranes, and beyond that, the regulatory bodies, not having to request a day to burn, knowing that it's so marginal that you're probably going to get shut down. For us, we just put ourselves in a better position. Mr. Stonecipher from the City of Albuquerque, our Air Quality Board representative, we talk these things out. I don't think there's been many times where Jeff's had to say, no, I don't think this is a good day. I think you need to rethink this. We have those open dialogues. Jeff's a team member of ours, and likewise, all of the other cooperators, interagency folks around. It is a giant team effort. We all have jobs to do. We all have targets. Everybody gets that. But if the Santa Fe sends smoke down in the metro area, well, we pay for that too. Likewise, if we send smoke down into the Bosque del Apache during the Festival of Cranes, well, Jake pays for that. So it's very much, we try not to do that. It's very much a team effort, and I think that's what struck me the most about as I put my thoughts together for this little talk, was how much of a team effort it really is. So, back to the Albuquerque International Balloon Fiesta. What do? Well, it's pretty easy, honestly. You don't burn. You just don't burn. You don't even ask. We don't even ask, do we, Jeff? We don't ask. We know better. There are just things as being a team player and a good cooperator that you just don't do. Unfortunately, the Albuquerque Balloon Fiesta lies at a time, as does the Festival of Cranes, at a time it just never fails. We're in a burn window, and they're the best burn windows of the year, in my mind. It always works that way. So, October 1st, you need to really start paying attention to what you're doing and thinking about suspending the burn program temporarily. That also ties into something else. It's in a slide. We may or may not get there, and that's okay. We can talk through this. But there are so many different things that play into this. And one of those things just happens to be northern goshawk habitat. So for us in the Sandia Mountains, we have a pretty significant area that is the post-fledgling area. So that comes with its own timing restriction. And I tell you this, not because we're going to talk about birds too much today, but simply to say the timing of this in the balloon fiesta is that we go out of the restriction window for a significant portion of our district, the timing restrictions, on October 1st. So all summer long when we're preparing and we've been looking at the monsoon patterns and looking at fuel moistures and tracking ground moistures and public meetings and all those things, and knowing that under the confines of our NEPA for several project areas, that we open up on October 1st. That's when we are allowed to burn legally under our NEPA documents. And then that again coincides with the day we probably need to start shutting down, even thinking about burning. So that's a very tough place to be, but we work through it. And this year was a good example of how that it really worked for us. We knew that we didn't want to burn from October 1st to October 13th, or the 4th through the 13th, something in there like that. But we really set up for it. Through our public meetings, through all of our contacts with the media, through all of our outreach, the conversations with all our cooperators, we said we're going to be looking for opportunities starting October 1st, because that's when we actually get legal to start burning. A few people were concerned about that, thinking we might have forgotten about the balloon fiesta. That wasn't the case, but we worked through those dialogues, and yeah, it is an absolute concern with the timing. So here at this district, at our ranger district, it's a very small district. We only have about 100,000 acres. On the west side of our district, our land comes right down and touches the city of Albuquerque property. On the east side of the district is the East Mountain communities, where we have somewhere in the neighborhood of 23,000 homes in our WUI area. The north side gets into smaller communities and up into Santa Fe, and on the south side, it's no different. We are quite surrounded. So when I started putting this together, again, I said that the challenge with the balloon fiesta is just a very small part of what we're talking about. I really started thinking about, where do we send? Yeah, right there. Where can I send? Great timing. Where can I send my smoke? That was excellent. Thank you. So where do we send our smoke? So it's coming in November. I don't want to send it down to Jake's neck of the woods for any length of time during that week at least. We've got the Albuquerque Sunport Airport. Our regulatory body here, again I referenced Mr. Stonecipher here, is I would say lenient to a point where you have to look at the effects of the smoke. And I tell you, we own our smoke. Roy, you talked about this a little bit. As a practitioner, that's the big deal. Where are we putting our smoke? It's going somewhere. And where do we do that? So here, anytime we have any sort of east component, I can guarantee you it's going to go into Albuquerque. Even if we think we're sending it north for a little while, well, it's going to drain downriver and come right into the metro. And if we happen to send it down to Isleta or Jake's neck of the woods, you can be guaranteed for some reason it's going to drain up the river and get into the metro. It's just a freak of nature, this Rio Grande corridor. All roads with smoke seem to lead to the metro. So the Sunport is one of those components. The Kirtland Air Force Base adjoining the Sunport is another component of that. The communities on the east side. So through our community participation, and I think what Jake is doing is fantastic. We've taken a lot of models from their program, and we have embraced what we feel is the most important thing. And Jake, you said it too. It's the transparency. It's the involvement and the transparency with our public. We also are doing public invites out to the burn units. We are also doing very elaborate and numerous public meetings. And some of the mindset shift has been, for lack of a better term, just tell it all. Tell it all. Every single thing. Complete transparency. Talk about the NEPA process. Talk about what goes into that. The last public meeting we had setting up for our fall burn windows, I had a giant dry erase board in front of the public, and we did a little mini ignitions class. I mean, we were drawing firing patterns out. I explained 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1, chevron firing, the whole 9 yards. We went through it. And it's amazing what that does. I mean, it really, like Jake said in his presentation, by the time you get done with some of these things, or you get them out there and they listen to the radio communication, there just aren't a lot of questions. It really opens their eyes to that. And I think for so many years, I'll just use myself as an example, we're the professionals, don't worry about it, we got this thing. That just doesn't really work. We thought it worked for a long time, huh, Roy? We thought we were really doing good things. And it's amazing now, you look at how we operate now as to then. I'm just stunned that we went along for so long. It's no wonder we got the prescribed fire CE taken away, huh? So in this day and age, there's concerns everywhere. And I'm not standing up here saying that we have the worst concerns of anybody. That's not the case. We all have challenges. We all have people to work with. We all have smoke receptors to deal with. So how we manage that here, mainly, is active partnership, good communication, understanding the needs and the implications of the burn program and the people around us, not just our cooperators, again, but special events. We affect a tremendous number of schools with our smoke. Tremendous. Any way we send smoke, it's also landing on a school somewhere. That's a big deal to us. So, good communication. We have one of our best partners sitting in here, Krista. Hi, thanks for coming. Krista does a tremendous job integrating our local schools in the East Mountain communities in through our programs. We've got kids out there. I like Jake's 4-year-old little metaphor there. We've got kids now that probably know how to do, or are going to soon, how to do fuel sampling, understand fire ecology better than a lot of generations. So it's really neat how this integration and transparency is forming our programs and our thought process. So as we get to burn day, it's amazing. I'm not going to say that it's easy. There's still the risk and the complexities of putting fire on the ground, but boy, with all the legwork we've done and how we've kind of positioned ourselves with everybody around us, it's amazing. Leading up to that morning, we've probably had almost 0 negative calls or feedback going into that day. The last burn unit we did, a couple hundred acres, 207 I think, sandwiched between the military withdrawn and one of our largest community bases that are touching the Forest Service property. I think we had, Arlene, you can help me on this, 200 or 300 phone calls that day, probably. Of that, 2 or 3 were negative. Handful of concerned people. Anytime you're putting that level of smoke in the air and depositing it on local communities, there's concern. I think we all live in the shadow of some pretty major events that have happened in New Mexico in terms of bad outcomes, and we talk about that. And I think that going back to that transparency and describing the impacts, that has gone a long ways for us. Being real open, really, really open. Don't sugarcoat it, and people understand and they get it. Yeah, that's probably copyrighted, and I don't have it. Okay, thanks. So no, I can't give this PowerPoint to anybody. So the Festival of Cranes, yeah, big deal. It is. The Northern Goshawk also, we talked about that. And I'm going to pull out my note, make sure I get this right from Roy. This is about when I walked in, and this is just the most perfect thing I've heard in a long time, Roy. It's that the small but significant successes. And we don't say that. That's not exactly what we say, but that is exactly what we're doing. On our district, we started small. We've had a fairly large gap in time where we put smoke in the air and did really aggressive prescribed burning on our district. And so we started small. And boy, did we catch flack for it. We'd go to the FMO meetings. What'd you do this year, Ralph? 10 acres? Yeah, that's right. We did do 10 acres. And by God, I'm proud of that. And we worked a long ways to get to where we're at now. And we're still not of the point where, we're not a Magdalena Ranger District. We're not, we're not some of the more remote places that can do the large scale burns at this point. But boy, 2 weeks ago when we pulled off 207 acres in a 2-day period, right in people's backyards with people standing on the fence, concerned, it was a big deal. Small but significant successes. I like that, Roy. Thank you for that. That epitomizes what we're going for. And just that we're able to do it in an area, see if I can actually go back, in an area that we talked about spot fires. I get a kick out of everybody, every prescribed burn, if you're not getting spots, right, Holly, you're not burning. That's the way it is. That's just the way it is. If you're not getting spots, you're probably not in a good window. You're probably not meeting your true consumption objectives. There's something you're not getting if you're not having to chase some spots around. That's just the way it is. In our area, the burn unit we were just talking about is down in here next to the withdrawn area, like I said. Withdrawn area is 20, almost 30,000 acres, full of UXOs. We're burning right against that fence. So the rule in there, if you get a spot in there, you can't go after it. We can't set foot in there. We can't put boots on the ground. So if you talk to the Air Force, their FMO from Kirtland, what he wants to do, if we get spots in there, it's easy. It's a no-brainer. All we have to do is pull fire all the way down the fence around the top and let it go into the withdrawn area. That's all we got to do. It's pretty straightforward. Yeah, no risk to people. We don't have to go in there and put boots on the ground. All we got to do is burn the 30,000 acres and call it a day. So, significant challenge with spotting in that area. And then, of course, the local communities on the other side. It's a challenge not only in terms of smoke, but just the political notifications and how we have these dialogues about risk. Our risk dialogues are quite entertaining, for sure, on all these burn units. So Balloon Fiesta, that was the title of this presentation. Small component of the smoke receptors and the timing limitations we have around here, but obviously an extremely important one.